Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back from another cook video. In today's video, we're doing a celebration. When I think about celebrations and I think about restaurants, I often think about steakhouses. It's a place where a lot of people go to celebrate birthdays, graduations, holidays, and all these different things. So I decided I want to try to replicate a plate of food that you would get at a steakhouse. And so today we're going to be working on the ultimate prime rib so that we can, one, celebrate my mom's birthday and also get you guys ready for, doing a prime rib for the holiday season coming up. And with that, we're going to work on a couple things. We're going to try to make the perfect prime rib. We're also going to try to make a side and 2 sauces. So we're going to work on 4 different things in today's video. And to up it even more, we're going to try to make everything from scratch as much as possible. So if you guys are interested in seeing more videos like this, do me a favor and hit the like button before we get started. All right, let's bring out that prime rib. So this is our prime rib roast. So we could just go salt and pepper and just leave it at that and be perfectly fine. But I wanted to try a couple different things just out of curiosity. I'm gonna trim this up a little bit. Some people are like, no, you shouldn't trim it at all. Just leave it as is and let all that fat just kind of like base itself. But this chunk of fat is really not gonna render. It's not gonna really allow us to get any of the seasoning onto actual meat itself. So I'm gonna trim some of that down. So today is Wednesday. I'm gonna try to get this done for dinner for Friday night. So we're gonna dry brine this for 2 days. One additional step that I'm gonna take, I'm gonna be coating this in kind of like whole grain Dijon mustard. As much as I love like a simple prime rib, I also do feel like sometimes it can be lacking in flavor. I want to have some of that kind of like mustard seed, crushed mustard seed to kind of be part of the texture on the outside as well. So before we season this thing up, let's get to trimming. As much as I would love to show you guys what I'm doing, I'm a little bit nervous that I'm going to mess up. So I'm just gonna do this real quick and I'll show you guys where I'm at afterwards. Like this chunk right here, that's not gonna do anything for us. If you wanna add some more rendered fat to your prime rib, take this, render it down, and then you can base it however you want. It already kind of creates a seam for you, so don't feel like you have to guess where you're supposed to cut. Just kind of follow that seam, and you can even hear on the mic. You're just following that seam that is naturally kind of created. When you go to butcher shops and they just give you this perfect kind of ribeye roast, this is essentially what they're doing. Buy the whole thing and try it out for yourself. Might not be successful the first time, but you'll learn. And it gives you an excuse to buy another one later. That's just a lot of stuff that we don't have to cook. And I think this is gonna attribute to having an uneven cook. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide what you wanna do. But for today's cook, we're taking this entire chunk off. Now we got these little sections right here where it's like in between the bones of the ribeye. And just to make sure that we can make sure it's even, I'm gonna cut this off. Is this excessive? Maybe. I just wanna make sure that I can get this to be the best prime rib that I can make it. To me, this looks way better than what we started with earlier. I think we're gonna get a much even cook. Ugh. Guys, you guys have no idea how many gloves I've used for this video already, and it would really help out if you guys would like and subscribe so I could make a little bit more money because I need more gloves. And I know Brad from Chud's Barbecue said the same thing, but yeah, this is ridiculous. I'm already out of gloves. I gotta go get another box. Like, subscribe, share this video with your friends. We're gonna coat this in that ground Dijon mustard like I told you guys about. This is what we're using today. And the reason why I chose this one is because it is a little more coarse than just a regular Dijon mustard. And I wanted some of that texture from the mustard seed. And just so that we don't cross-contaminate, we'll get some mustard separately here. Just gonna add just a little bit of water just so that I can actually spread it and it doesn't clump up. This does have some spices and some sugars and some vinegar and stuff like that. So yeah, I do want some of that flavor to be incorporated into this prime rib. Get the sides. It's pretty hard to over-season prime rib. Even though this binder is pretty seasoned, I'm not really super worried about under-seasoning this prime rib here. We're gonna get a lot on. A lot of pepper on this. This is where we're gonna get a lot of our bark and our texture from, is here. When you're seasoning prime rib and you're questioning whether or not you seasoned enough, season more. All right, so this is our seasoned prime rib right here. And we're going to put this in the fridge and it's going to dry brine next 2 days or so. But in terms of prep for the prime rib, at least for now, that's it. Next thing I want to do is I want to make a beef broth. I want to make a reduced red wine kind of steak sauce to kind of have on the side of this. And one thing I want to do with this is do something that's a little bit non-traditional. And honestly, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but we're going to try it anyway. In stocks, you'll see either everything just kind of going into a pot and just reducing. Another thing that people try to do to add extra flavor, they'll roast everything in the oven. Just because I am who I am, I'm going to throw this on the grill and see if we can kind of replicate those kind of roasty flavors that you would get in the oven, but do on the grill. The only negative I feel like we can get out of this is if we keep it on there for too long and it chars up and we kind of get that bitter taste in our broth, or the fact that, you know, because we're not scraping stuff off a pan, we're not gonna get necessarily that same type of fond that you would get. But I do feel like the extra dimension of flavor of being on the grill will help us kind of bring in a different flavor to a beef stock that maybe is a little bit untraditional, but I feel like in the end will still be delicious. So I'm gonna keep it really, really simple. The protein that we're gonna be using for this one is gonna be beef shank, just because we got those big chunks of marrow in there. And for the other ingredients for this one, I'm just gonna keep it really simple. I'm just gonna use carrots, and instead of red onions, I'm gonna use shallots because that's just what I have on hand right now. Traditionally, it would be a mirepoix, which means I'm missing celery. But when I went to a grocery store, all they had was big bags of celery, and I personally didn't want to deal with the rest of the bag. What I'm gonna do is give a rough chop to this carrot, and then split these shallots in half, and then we'll just give enough surface area for these things to get a nice char. We're not trying to cook this, we're just trying to get a good crust on the outside. We're gonna flip this every so often so we can slowly build that color, but without having this marrow be all cooked out just from being on one side for too long. It would be really bad if all of our marrow just melted out of here. It looks pretty good, we got some good char in it. We didn't melt out all the marrow, so this one for right now, we're gonna pull it off. Very, very important not to char these up because I think these will go much faster for sure. It does smell really, really good though. Let's get these off. Starting to feel nice and soft. Lastly, we'll go with the carrots, and I cut them down like this because we don't have to be messing with too many rolling pieces. All right guys, so here we are. So we got our blistered shallots and our carrots. If you guys take a look at those beef shanks, you can see the marrow starting to melt and that little piece right there that kind of popped out. The smell coming off of this tray right now is great, so I'm really, really excited to see how this stock turns out. The last additional thing that I'm gonna do, if there's any charred skin off of those shallots, I'm gonna take that off. Like this piece right here, just take the skin off, and you got beautifully roasted shallots right there. And like I was saying about that marrow, this is gonna be super nice in our stock right there. And then any remaining juices. Now we're gonna top this off with some water. So this is our base for our stock. All we're gonna do next is we're gonna bring this to the stove. We're gonna bring this to a nice simmer and make sure it stays at a simmer the entire time. If you're really trying to extract all the flavor from everything in there, one thing that you could do is go in and take a piece of the meat, and if it tastes like absolutely nothing, then you're kind of there. In a lot of Korean soups, a lot of these kind of bones and things like that are used. We don't take it as far because we still wanna be able to eat some of the meat and have it have some flavor. So later on, if you feel like you want to eat these beef shanks, just take as far as that being kind of nice and tender. But if you want to take it all the way and you're just going to discard it, take it until that beef has no more flavor. Here is our stock that started yesterday. You guys can see underneath there, once we skim all this off, it's super jiggly, and that's what we're looking for. I'm gonna skim off all this fat, get it back onto some heat so it's not super jello-y, drain it, put it into a smaller pot, and then reduce the stock a little bit more. All right, everybody. So after 2 days of dry brining, this is what our prime rib is looking like. The last step that we're gonna do before we start cooking this is I'm gonna let it sit out for a good hour, hour and a half or so before we throw it in the smoker. I don't exactly know how long this is gonna cook. I'm gonna try to keep it between 200 and like 235 or so, just so that we don't run the risk of having a gray band on the outside in this first part of the cooking process. Next, we're gonna be working on one of my favorite condiments, a horseradish sauce. I have no issues with store-bought horseradish sauce because I actually do still enjoy it. Like Arby's horsey sauce, that might be one of the best fast food sauces of all time. This horseradish, we're gonna add a bunch of sour cream. Make sure getting all to the bottom and scooping all that horseradish that we scraped off, because you don't wanna leave a lump at the bottom and someone grab it and just eat an entire bite of horseradish. You can taste the horseradish, but it's not as spicy as I would like it to be. Is this too much? Am I making a mistake? There are places that add in red wine vinegar, but for this video, I'm gonna use that aged sherry vinegar that I used in my chimichurri last time. With some salt and fresh ground black pepper. That horseradish is starting to open up, and it will continue to open up just a little bit as we let it rest. Make it a couple hours before you're gonna serve it, maybe almost the same time you throw the prime rib in. All right, so the next thing that we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be making our sauce for prime rib. So this is what we did all that stock making for. To start, we're gonna start with some neutral oil. Once that's nice and warmed up, I'm gonna toss in some diced shallots and garlic. So even though our base is gonna be our stock, I wanna be able to do something special with this. So I decided to do a herb and wine sauce with some of that beef stock. So wine going in, kind of like what we did with our beef stock. All we're really trying to do is reduce this wine. We wanna cook off that alcohol. We want it to turn somewhat syrupy. After this, we're gonna add our beef stock into it, and we're gonna reduce it again. So we're just trying to maximize flavors at every step of the way. I'm also gonna throw in some thyme and some rosemary to add some aromatics. So I just wanted to show you guys from my view. We want to get a little bit more jammy than this, but always scrape down those corners. We don't want corners to burn. All right, so I've reduced the wine enough to where all the aromatics are kind of floating above the wines. I think we're pretty good. I don't want to take it too far and just kind of completely ruin it. So at this point, we're gonna add in all our stock. Here is our sauce, and you can see how reduced it is. Like that spoon isn't going that far into the bottom of that pot. We're gonna reduce this down a little bit more so it's not as soupy. Right before we serve it, we're going to fold in some cold butter into the sauce so that we can get a really nice sheen and good texture to it. It's 2 pounds of spinach, but as you guys all know, this is gonna wilt very quickly. We wanna make sure that we don't overcook the spinach here. We just wanna blanch it real quickly, put in an ice bath. After we do that, it's really important that we squeeze out as much water as possible, because if we don't, later on when we mix it into our sauce, it's gonna kind of make the sauce really soupy. Now that we got our spinach blanched, we're gonna be working on our cream sauce. First, to start off, we're gonna be making a roux to make a bechamel sauce. I don't know why I put them in 2 different containers, but this is equal parts. So this is half a cup of flour and half a stick of butter. Now that we got our blonde roux put together, this is a quart of milk. I'm not gonna season this right now. I'm gonna season this when I finish off the dish, because I kind of want to use the rest of the sauce for other things in the future. But the one thing that I am gonna add is a little bit of this fresh ground nutmeg. This burner is a little bit too hot to leave this thing just simmering on its own, so I'm gonna move this over their stove and have it simmer for about 5 to 7 minutes or so. I think we'll be good to use this for our sauce for our cream spinach. Alright guys, so we are gonna put together our cream spinach now. This cream spinach is inspired by one of my favorite cream spinach I've had recently at a steakhouse in Chicago called The Vet. So this is the blue cheese that we're dealing with today. We're just gonna crumble some in here. We don't have to put the entire piece in. Even though I like the blue cheese, the other thing I'm gonna add is a little bit of Gruyere cheese in there. And if you don't like blue cheese, you obviously don't need to put it in. Yeah, that's delicious. But even with that cheese, definitely does need some salt. And then I'm gonna put in some black pepper. This sauce looks thick right now, but we are gonna put that spinach in there, and a little bit of water that's still in there, I think will loosen up a little bit. Now we'll add our spinach that we just kind of blanched and squeezed out as much liquid as we could. So there it is, guys. We got our cream spinach with blue cheese and Gruyere. We just pulled this prime rib off. It was just short of 4 hours or so. We pulled this off about 119, 120-ish or so. We're gonna let it rest for a bit, and then right before we serve it, we're gonna throw it in the oven and turn it up as high as it'll go. I think mine goes up to like 525 or so, and then we're gonna blast it for just a minute or two, just to get the bark extra set. All right, guys, so this is the one that got blasted in that 500-degree oven right there. Let's cut into this thing. Oh, buddy. Look at that. Great color. little gray in that spot in the end right there, but I think I did a bad job. I pushed it too far in the back of that oven. The rest of that looks absolutely perfect, guys. Got that color right there. Color just continues to bloom as it kind of sits out, so man, that looks awesome. Looks perfect right there. All right, finally, let's get into this. All right, let's try this cream spinach. Got that little blue cheese chunk right on top. It's nice and smooth. Yeah, a little hint of that blue cheese. Not bad. Pretty dang good, actually. I'm gonna go straight down the middle of this prime rib. All right, we gotta do 2 bites. We gotta do 1 bite right in the eye. So I wanna taste it first without any of the crust on the outside. So I'm just gonna tell you guys about the seasoning. If you guys find that when you do prime rib, it comes out a little bit under seasoned, definitely do the 2-day dry brine. It makes a significant difference. Now let's get a bite of the end where we got that crust, where we got the mustard and the salt and pepper. In that mustard, we got those mustard seeds and it has other spices in there. Works really, really well with this prime rib. Usually everyone's favorite part, the cat. Oh yeah. So a bite with the horseradish cream. If you guys can find horseradish, make this on your own. That fresh horseradish has kind of like a sweetness to it that's really nice. Let's go with the sauce. Way better than just a regular jus. Cheers, everybody, if you're having a drink right now. If you guys plan on doing a prime rib for the holiday season that's coming up, I would definitely recommend doing the 2-day dry brine if you got the fridge space to do so. And adding that mustard, I feel like really made a difference. Not only did it hold on to a lot of seasoning, but it brought in a lot of other flavors too that I wouldn't necessarily say like, oh, it tastes like mustard. It just tastes like there's other things going on there. And it's a really welcome part to this prime rib that I've never had before. So looking at this plate of food that's in front of me, I just realized there's so many different cooking techniques that are involved in it. I think it's really fun to replicate a plate of food that you would normally get at a restaurant, just because like you get to see how much work goes into putting like a plate like this together. You can see all the knowledge that goes into making some of these foods, and I think it's another way just to really respect it and to understand it in a cool way. So that's it for us today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you guys did, please make sure to like this video, to subscribe, share this video with your friends, and also leave down in the comments below what's something that you're gonna try for this holiday season. Whatever you're doing, let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.